So last time we talked about pot and alcohol and how they change the way your brain works, but this time we're going to talk more about how these substances and other drugs change how you feel. And beyond that, what happens when you have a neurological condition or something's just not working right. And so a good place to start is with depression, right? It is one of the most prevalent conditions in the entire world, and it is also one of the most difficult to fix conditions because, like other neurological conditions, we don't really know exactly what's going on. And so, serotonin. You might have heard of serotonin. It's one of the neurotransmitters in your brain, except it's part of a small group that deal primarily with kind of how you feel. And so, if you look at someone who suffers from depression, then they might be taking SRIs. And SRIs are serotonin reuptake inhibitors. It's a fancy name for basically it makes it so there's more serotonin in your brain. Now, what we know about serotonin is if you don't have enough of it, you are likely to be depressed. If you have too much of it, there's a condition called serotonin syndrome in which you get very, very sick and it's potentially fatal. But in between, there's a sweet spot. There's a good place for it. As to what it does, it seems to involve animal gut decisions. It seems to be resource-based. How good are you at getting resources for yourself or establishing a dominance even? And so there was this weird study where they took a bunch of crustaceans and they found the males that were beta males and they injected them with serotonin. And then some of these males became the new alphas in their communities. They became strong and powerful and socially aggressive. And in humans, we see a sort of different behavior, but basically you can take someone who has social anxiety and might be suffering from a serotonin deficit, and if you restore it, then they might feel more comfortable conversing with people or being in a social situation. And you can kind of parallel that to being more successful at getting resources because we're social creatures. But again, it's a very complicated idea. It's hard to just understand exactly what this does. And so there's another neurotransmitter just like it called dopamine. And we think a lack of this stuff is what causes ADHD. It's what Ritalin controls. Ritalin makes the dopamine levels go up. And dopamine, we think, is sort of a reward neurotransmitter. It's part of the reward pathway in your brain. And it's what makes you feel really good when you've done something great. And it's what makes you feel like crap when you haven't really done anything lately and you just have been lying around. It's what makes you proud when you got an A or you helped your wife out with the dishes or whatever, right? It's this feeling of accomplishment. And we think that if you don't have enough of it, it might be really hard to be goal-oriented and get things done. But if you have too much of it, then you're in a new problem because drugs like cocaine or other highly addictive substances, they make the dopamine levels in your brain go up very high, insanely high. So high that your brain starts to think that that's the new baseline for dopamine. That's the new normal level that it expects. And so now, after having done a drug like that, your brain won't be as impressed when you do the dishes or you get an A or you get a nice paycheck bonus. It's just not as impressed anymore. Your brain's chemistry is always trying to even itself out. So if you surge it with one thing, it won't listen to other stuff as much. Or so if you're missing something, it might amplify the things that are there. Because your brain's always trying to balance itself out. If there's too much of something, it'll try to down-regulate that, and it'll try to make less of that in the future. And if there's not enough, it's supposed to try to make more of something so it all balances out. The problem then is if you do one of these addictive drugs, then now other things in your life just aren't as important. Nothing else is giving you that rush of dopamine, that feeling of accomplishment, except taking drugs. And so now your brain actually starts to poison you from the inside. It starts to tell you that you won't matter. You'll never feel like you've accomplished anything unless you take more drugs and get those dopamine levels back where they're supposed to be. And this isn't just dopamine. This is other things too, like serotonin. If you smoke pot, then you might feel your serotonin levels go up for a little while after you smoke. But if your body's so used to being high that you expect those levels to be raised all the time, then when you're not high on marijuana, your body will actually not produce enough serotonin. And now you'll be anxious and nervous again, as though you're suffering from a deficiency. And so the conclusion of all of this is that it's damn complicated. So if you look at schizophrenics, there's a lot of research out there that says that too much dopamine in the system might be part of the problem. And psychosis in general might just come from a lack of the neurotransmitter we talked about last time that helps you make new memories or learn things. And drugs that artificially make these exact same changes on your brain end up producing kind of the same result. And that's why there's a lot of similarities between people who are high on PCP and people suffering from legitimate psychosis. And there's something to be said there about how this very, very powerful reward-based behavior mixes with a break from reality and produces the kind of symptoms that we recognize as psychosis. And if you look at people who suffer from migraines, they have a surge of serotonin right before they get their migraines. And we don't know if that causes it or if it's just a part of it. We really don't know. And the most difficult one, if we can go back to depression, difficult because it's just so prevalent, it is still sort of a mystery. We know that, again, if you put these drugs back where they're supposed to be, it might solve the problem, but sometimes it doesn't. And when you take these drugs or any other drugs, or even alcohol or nicotine, you're changing things in your body that we still don't entirely understand. And so whether or not you do these things is entirely up to you. And if you're interested, there's a lot to look into and learn about because it is absolutely fascinating. But no matter what, we think it's something you should know. Thanks for listening.